Good afternoon. Today we're going to speak about the sixth fetter, the sixth assumption we're examining on the journey to awakening. Actually, it's the third because some other assumptions are seen through together. And this is the start into inquiring into reality itself. So let's see how this already very subtle fetter can be examined. My name is Christiane. I'm from Finding Awakening, where you can get help to see through all these fetters and find awakening in this lifetime. All right, let's start. The sixth fetter is called the desire for form, rupa-raga. And this is quite a strange name. I mean, how does desire for form show up? How do you recognize that it's there? And that is a very nearly unnoticeable little thing that happens that shows that the assumption of a subject is there. I'll show you how to find it. The desire for form creates what we experience as forms. That means basically colors, forms, and shapes that seem to be surrounded by borders, firm borders that separate each object one from the other. And usually we don't even question it. It seems self-evident that this is the case. There are borders between everything, between me and everything else. I'm standing in the middle of experience, as it were, in the central perspective, and everything else happens around me. The subject is not the personal me, it's more the perspective from where we see things and from where things are labeled. So, how can you find out about the subject? How can you identify it and not look for the self? Because that wouldn't help you in this case. Form, the borders are created by assuming the subject, and the subject can be found this way. Just look at something. I'm looking right now at something that's just right there, over there, a bottle of water. And as you rest the gaze there, just try to stay out there with the object without kind of turning the attention back to yourself. You can notice it in very subtle eye movements. Look at something. How many seconds can you stay out there without these eye movements happening and kind of looking back to yourself? Look at that object. Can you find that? The subtle looking back, this referring back to yourself. This referring back to something inward of us. Rupa also has a second meaning. As Kevin Chanelek told me, it's also inward. It's not only form, but also means inward, something inward. We're looking for something inward. And that seems to confirm that there is something in us that actually experiences these objects. At this point, outside and inside will still be experienced, so don't worry about these aspects. Also, you will still have a sense of me. So when you find this subtle referring back to something somewhere in here, Just find out what is referred back to. What does the attention turn towards quickly? Can you also notice when you look at something how quickly a label is added? If you refrain from labeling, just postpone it for a moment, close your eyes, look at it again. First the label isn't there, and just let it be that way. Would you be able to know what it is you're looking at? Just play with it. Close the eyes, look back. In the first moment, when the label isn't added yet, just try to extend this moment. Does it need something in here to identify what's there, what's seen? Now, something we see is obviously an object, but object does have a broad meaning in this context. It means everything that can be discerned. A sensation, a body sensation, a sound, touch, smell, a taste, feelings, thoughts, everything that can be discerned is an object in this context. So you couldn't do the same with any other object. Just listen to any sound that's there. A sound is an experience. Now, where's the subject in experience? A sound is experienced. Where's the subject? Do you experience it as well? I know there is no you. I just use the personal pronouns in the very normal way. We all know there is no self at this point. If you haven't seen through the first 5 fetters yet, you can still play with this, but most likely this fetter won't fall because basically they build on each other. Now think of something you experienced yesterday. Hello, Caroline. And as you notice the mental images and the internal kind of hearing, you don't hear with your eyes, but the thoughts repeat what was said. Where is the subject in this? Or go back to what you looked at right now. How far is it away? What would you think? 150, 3 feet, 5 feet, whatever. Determine or estimate the distance. Hey, Caroline, 2 Carolines. And now you have the distance. I have a lamp here to yourself. Now, the lamp is one end point of the distance. Where exactly is the other end point within you? Within a centimeter or a quarter inch. Where is the other end point? Can you find it? This is the way we look for the subject, and as you can see, it's really, really subtle already. And the sense of the subject is not so easy to find. When I looked at the subject, I'm actually not really good in this explaining this fetter, because for me it fell away so quickly that I couldn't really explore it. Thank you. I noticed that the fetter is ripe because I felt like an extraterrestrial walking the streets in a spacesuit, and my body seemed so solid. And sometimes I felt like living in a nutshell, and everything, I was just encased in it. And when the sense of border starts to change, even they either feel more defined or they start to become wobbly. Then the third fetter is ready to be, the sixth fetter is ready to be inquired into. So I noticed that, and I noticed also the opposite, that the borders, it felt like my borders were starting to fizzle out. And well, I freaked out. I thought, wow, what's happening here? And if this falls apart, I can't function any longer. And so I thought, all right, this is terrible. And I looked for help in a group of like-minded people, and I described what was happening to me. And somebody asked me, well, what would happen? What do you think? And I said, oh, I would fall apart and couldn't function any longer. And then I thought, oh gosh, I thought the same with the first fetter, with the self-illusion. All right, it's just another illusion, I get that. Okay, and for me, it was very interesting to find out that I was really looking back to myself. I had never noticed that because it's so unnoticeable nearly, but it can be noticed if you put your attention towards it. And that was a very strange feeling. And then I played with staying out with the object and not allowing the referring back. That was a very interesting feeling. It felt like a policeman gesturing, stop. And this stop was holding the objects and me apart so we wouldn't merge. This was how the borders were created. Very interesting experience. I mean, inquiring into reality is absolutely fascinating. How we create what we think is real. And then the illusion quickly collapsed, so I couldn't look much longer, unfortunately. And everything just looked like a TV screen, pretty flat, just the forms and shapes. And it was very clear that everything else was added. The depth, the 2D vision was from then on the default, and 3D vision was clear, was another added interpretation. And something else happened to me in this fetter. It happens for most people here or in the next one. The sense of a body disappeared. I did work with the body meditation during that time, and that has probably influenced how quickly it went. Just feeling the body and trying to feel the borders, or whatever information I could get from just feeling the body, which isn't much, by the way. And one morning I woke up and it felt like the middle of my body was gone, the tummy area. And I thought, now this is getting really weird. Well, since I had done this body meditation so much, it didn't feel uncomfortable because it was just very clear that the body is not something we can experience. It's just all an added image we have in our head. And 3 days later, I woke up in the morning and any sense of the body was gone and hasn't come back since. And in that moment, I remember that I woke up in the morning and there was just no body. And I thought, wow, now I understand. I had been on diets or off diets most of my life. And strangely, no matter how much or how little I weighed, my sense of myself was always the same. I was very, very slim, too slim, really. And still I had the sense that I was fat. So weird. And I realized that was because this mental image of my body didn't change with the numbers on the scale. It was totally untouched. It just remembered all the same and figured me at the start of my diet journey. That was very interesting, and I'm very certain that's how all eating disorders work. If they are, if people want to lose weight. So, yeah, that was, again, I thought, wow, amazing what we add to what we think is there. And so that was the journey through the sixth fetter. I slipped into the seventh very quickly, and they are really close together, just like fetters 4 and 5. And when I had seen through the seventh, I thought, I gotta go back. I didn't do the sixth properly, and it just wasn't possible. I couldn't push the objects away far enough to examine this thing with the borders again. It was just gone, totally gone. It was quite amazing. Yes, so that's the journey through the sixth. Do you have any questions? Feel free to ask. And Paul, ich werde gleich um 5 auf der deutschen Webseite das Gleiche machen, auf Deutsch. I just told Paul, who speaks German, that I'm going to do the same on the German website so people who don't talk English can follow. Yes, do you have any questions? Let me look. It always takes a moment for the questions to show up. This sixth fetter falling away can be quite disorienting, and I must admit that I added a few dents to my car because the spatial vision didn't work any longer. I just gauged the distances wrongly. I once nearly hit a gas pump. I did hit the high curb at the gas pump, and had to call the motor club to fix my car again so I could drive, because the whole thing around the tires, I don't know how you call it, had come down. So really pay attention. Also, I damaged an outside rear view mirror of another car. You can do it. Just drive slowly when it's somewhat tight and when you're parking. Have a good look how far the other car is away. It just can look so different to what it is actually. All right, no question. Then I will say goodbye and stay tuned. This week will be all about the sixth fetter. And for the people who see this afterwards, if you want to know more about awakening, subscribe to my newsletter on my webpage, findingawakening.com. I will link the page where you can subscribe to the newsletter in the comments. Bye-bye.